Okay, so you want to get your textbook open to page 773. Pause the video till you get there. And we're going to be learning about what's called completing the square. And you'll see why it's called that in a minute. But up till now, we've been factoring perfect square trinomials. And they tell us that, this is the example here. So it's a plus b squared. So let's just say we had x plus 3 squared. That would equal a squared, which is x squared, and it's twice this, so 3 times 2 is 6. So it'd be 6x, and then 3 squared is 9. And that's where we get this from. Or again, if that's just confusing, you can just think of it's x plus 3 squared, and then you have your box, and then you can do the x and 3 and x and 3, and then we get our x squared in there, 3x, 3x, and then 3 times 3 is 9. And then this equals this 6x. And so again, we get the x squared 6x plus 9. So those are perfect square trinomials that we've been doing. So number one asks you to look at x squared plus 10x. And they wrote it like just this first part here. So you have x times x and then 10. Because this is just a binomial. So it says write the area of each. So we know this is x times x, or x squared. And then we know this is 10 times x, which is 10x. Okay? So now let's look at number 2. It says this figure can be modified into the shape of a square by splitting the second rectangle in half and rearranging the pieces. So what they're talking about doing is taking this square right here, and they cut it in half. And so you could think if you had it in half, this would be 5x, and this would be an area of 5x. And then the whole thing has an area of 10x. So I took this and split these two pieces in half. They put one here and one here. But together, they make this 10x piece here. Okay? So it says label the length of each piece and write the area of each piece in the center. Well, we already know that this big piece here is x squared. We cut this in half, so we know that this is 5x and this is 5x. So if we think about what multiplied to be there, we know that x times x gives us the x squared. So the question is, x times what number gives you 5x? And of course that would be 5. X times 5 is 5x. So again, then we have to see what multiplies here to give us 5x. And again, this would have to be 5. 5 times x is 5x, right? So now it says, do the two figures represent the same expression? Well, up here, our expression was x squared plus 10x. Okay, so we had x squared plus 10x. Now it should equal this as well because it's the same figure. All we did was split that 10x in half and move it around. So is that equivalent to x squared plus 5x plus 5x? And of course, that should be true. These are the same thing. 5x and 5x gives you the 10. Oops, this is supposed to be x, sorry. That's supposed to be 10x, okay? So now it says complete the figure so that it is a square and label the area you added. So we're going to look at this figure and we're going to complete it, and that's why this is called completing the square. So I'm going to complete this into a square. So I'm going to add a piece here and a piece here. So now I've completed this figure into a square. So the question is, now what is the area of this little piece here? Well, hopefully you know it's 5 times 5. So this is 25, okay? and label the area. We labeled the area. We're good. We know x and 5. X times x is x squared. 5 times x is 5x. 5 times 5 is 25. We know x times 5 is 5x here. Okay? Add this area to your original expression, and what is your new expression? So our expression up top was x squared plus 10x. 5x and 5x is 10x, right? Then it says add, that was our original expression, right? Because if we look up here, we had x squared plus 10. Then we added the 5x's, which still, this was still x squared plus 10x. That's still x squared plus 10x. But now that we added this 25 to that, we need to add that to our expression. So now the new expression is going to be x squared plus 10x plus 25. Okay? Then it says factor this expression. Well, hopefully you realize that this is a perfect square. And these are all pluses. So that's going to be x plus 5 times x plus 5, right? That would multiply to this. This would give you x squared, 5x, and 5x is 10x, and 5 times 5 is 25. And we can shorten that by writing it x plus 5 squared. So completing this square is originally we had this problem here, which was a rectangle, right? We sliced it and made it into a square. So we halved this, we put the two pieces here, and then we finished it into a square. And that's called completing the square. So let's look at this one now. It also lets us find zeros. Like if we looked at here, hopefully you would know that the zeros of this expression would be -5, right? Cross at -5 because you set that equal to 0. Okay. So now we want to look at this one again. So let's make like we just did. So we're going to create a square or a rectangle. Okay, so I started by making a rectangle like we did in the very beginning. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and say that this is going to be x squared and this is going to be 8x, right? So remember, we want to take this area here and half it. So if I half it, I should recognize that that's going to be 4x and 4x. Okay? So now I'm going to take this piece here and I'm going to draw it up here. Okay? And then we're going to put inside, this represents 4x and this represents 4x. And then we're going to pretend like this piece isn't there. Okay? So then we need to complete the square by going like this. Okay? And then if you think about it, we know that x times x is x squared. To get the 4x here, this is going to have to be 4. And to get 4x here, this is going to have to be 4. And to complete the square or finish it, we'll know 4 times 4 is 16. So then we can rewrite this as x squared plus 8x, because 4x and 4x is 8x. Then we added the 16 to it. And then we know that this is a perfect square. So this is going to be x plus 4 squared. Okay? Because again, this is x plus 4. And this is x plus 4. X plus 4 times x plus 4 is x squared. Okay? So we're going to do the same thing over here. Okay? So we want to draw ourselves a box or a rectangle to begin with, right? Ugh, that didn't turn out very good. Okay, so we're going to draw a rectangle. We're going to cut it in half. And then we're going to say, here we have x squared, so that goes in here. Here we have 5x, so this goes in here. Now, I want to split this square in half. Now this is not an easy one because you're splitting 5 in half. 5 in half you probably know is 2.5 or 5 halves, because this one's going to be 5 halves and this is 5 halves, or 5 divided by 2, right? So again, we want to finish and change this into a square now. So I'm going to take this piece, or this piece rather, and put it up here. Okay. And now I'm going to, when you divide 5 in half, you get 5 halves x. And we're going to ignore this piece here because I put it here. And this again is still 5 halves x. Okay. So again, I want to think about x times x is x squared. So now I want to look at how do I get this to be 5 halves x? Well, it's 5 halves times x, right? So this is 5 halves x, and this is 5 halves x. And then we want to finish up the square by adding this here. And then 5 halves times 5 halves, of course, is 5. So then we're going to rewrite this. It's x squared plus 5x. And then, actually this is 5 halves x, right? 5 halves and 5 halves would be 10 halves, which is 5x. I'm sorry, that was 5x. I screwed that up. This is 5x, right? And then we know that it's plus 5, okay? And then when we factor it, we know it's x plus 5 halves x and x plus 5 halves x. So the factored version is x plus 5 halves squared. Okay, and then if we look at the bottom here, it wants you to complete it. So we're sort of thinking about some shortcuts here. To get these two pieces, what I did was I halved this number, right? And I halved this number here. So if I'm going to half this number, it would be 4, and then we squared it, right? So if you think about this, this is going to be half of 8 is 4, and then 4 squared is 16. So this is going to equal x, it's going to have to be minus here, minus 4 squared. This is very similar to what we did up here. See if you can finish up B, C, and D and these missing spots, and we'll go over it in the morning. And if you, the video is finished, but if you would like to watch a little bit more about quads, here is our video that we like.
Sam, what's wrong?
These quadratic equations are really burning my waffles.
It'll be okay.
Well, how do I do these things?
Maybe this will help.
Everybody listen, pay attention, crime. We're about to solve quads so that y'all can pass. We'll teach you 3 methods. X is what we're after. Start off first, watch.
Teach me how to factor.
I'm trying to tell them, y'all got to try this. A factor one.
Let's go to completing the square. Here we go.